Alright, so we're here to go ahead and reassemble this Xperia Z here. We got our new screen. You can see that it's nice and fresh. It's going to fit perfectly on this phone for us. So we do need some double-sided adhesive here. I'm going to use a couple different sizes. Anything ranging from like a 3mm to a 1 or 1.5 to go down the sides or the bezel. Normally I prefer to use black because it seems like it doesn't promote as much light bleeding around the sides of the phone. But this clear stuff seems to be a little bit stickier, so we're going to give it a whirl. Now we want to be careful not to cover up some of the ports on this phone. Down here, the mic and the upper speaker and the camera ports. So we'll go ahead and just cut this adhesive to fit. Just going to round the edge a little bit, make sure we get it really nice in the corners. That's kind of a key thing when reassembling these devices. If you want it to stay put once you stick the screen back on, you want to get as much adhesive around it as you possibly can. You also want to make sure that the adhesive doesn't roll up on itself or crinkle. We don't need any ridges. That'll make the screen pull up in some areas. We definitely want to make sure that it's nice and flat when we apply it. You want to make sure your phone's nice and clean. Any remaining glue residue has been cleaned off before you start this process. You can just use some isopropyl alcohol to clean it. I find that works pretty good. Dries nice, so you put the new adhesive on, it doesn't come up at all, like some oily residues like a Goo Gone or any of that stuff. So alcohol seems to be the best work for us. Just being pretty mindful of that port down there. Go ahead and start at the top side of the phone now. Just being careful not to cover up some of these. Some of these look like there might just be screw holes. So you want to make sure that you understand where the front-facing camera is at, the proximity sensor, anything else that you may not want to cover up, like the speaker. Looks like it's overlapping a little bit there. The camera's been acting a little funky. You may see I have to start, and stop this video a little bit. We're going to go ahead and put another layer on the top of this device. Now if you're going to lay it in this manner here in the vertical, you want to make sure that it doesn't overlap onto the screen at all. If it does that, then it can cause a pressure spot within the display. You get kind of that white, like light bleed looking thing. We definitely want to make sure that does not happen. So just make sure you cut it maybe even a little bit shorter of where the display is going to go in. Go ahead and start with our thinner adhesive. We'll go down the sides of the device. This can be a little bit tricky. I like to make sure I use a spudger to make sure that it lays flat and all the way up against the wall of the phone. Make sure everything's held down nice and snug. See how it kind of moved there, so I'm just going to try to push it up against the side of the phone again. Definitely trying to make sure that tape doesn't overlap on top of itself. We're going to lay a little bit of a thinner strip here across the top of the phone. Make sure you don't cover up that speaker area that's going to display through the top of the glass. See that's got a little cutout. I'm going to make sure that your adhesive isn't displaying through that. Try to run a thin strip. You can see that there's a lot of open space at the upper right hand side of this device. We're going to put as much thin tape up here as we can to cover up any holes. See if we can just make sure that nothing's going to display through the top of this or the speaker's going to show. Looks good. Same thing with down here at the bottom. Excellent. Now that we've got it all taped off, the next part is to go ahead and just pull back all this backing. Make sure that you don't lift up any of the double-sided tape as you're removing the backing. That can sometimes happen. The easier thing to do is to press down on it and then pull up on the corner that you're trying to pull off. It seems like that helps it not pull up at all. Just like that. We'll kind of tear back the adhesive backing. Alright, now that all the adhesive removed, the next step is to go ahead and install the new screen that we have. So we need to remove this pink shielding off the back of the screen. It keeps the backlight nice and clean. Now what you want to do when you insert this cable through the bottom down here is you want to make sure it goes all the way through before you start connecting the glue portions. So we don't want any of the ribbon cable still left behind, getting pinched underneath the screen. So now let's pull it all the way through. Just going to go around and press kind of into the corners, make sure the cable's pushed in, and then press down on the bottom. And work our way back down to the top of the screen, just making sure all the adhesive is stuck to the screen. Try to make sure there's no ripples within the cable here. The connector on this bottom portion for the backlight and LCD cable is being a little bit finicky on this one. If need be, you can use some Captain tape to hold this down. I want to get a closer look at the connection and make sure that it's not messed up. It's in working order. See, it's been a little bit tricky there. Go ahead and reconnect the cable to the logic board of the device. You can use this little piece of tape to help hold it down. Put our bottom assembly in. Just make sure you put this little antenna clip back in its right spot. See, it'll kind of clip into place. Let's go ahead and fold it over. Kind of slides from the top down into the bottom area. We'll have to wiggle around this little speaker connector here to get that to stick on. This can be a little bit tricky. The trick is here to be patient with the device. Go ahead and put a screw in to make sure it stays in place. Put our connector back in. Our little housing secure. Now, one thing that I removed off this device that I didn't show in the disassembly, and I'll just go ahead and do it off camera here, is this little plastic connector here at the top. I messed around with the USB port on this phone, and I'll try to upload a video of that when I have enough time to do it. But the next step that we're going to do is go ahead and put the battery back in to the back of the device. Go ahead and put our connector in and put our tape back down onto this shielding here. Let's go ahead and just power the device on and make sure it's going to function properly before we go ahead and put anything back onto the rear of the device, the rear glass. Perfect. So we do have our screen lighting up. It's a good sign. Let's try to make sure it responds to touch here real fast. Alright, looks good. Our next step is to go ahead and put the adhesive around the back of the device. Basically, this goes in the same method as the front of the phone. We're just going to use the tape to go around the edge and just re-adhere it. Same method of cutting the corners into a quarter circle to make sure it's going to fit the edge. Definitely don't want it to overlap, and that corner was just a little too long, so just trim it up a little bit. Put a length down the side here. Now, one thing that I learned after using this for a little bit after the repair is you're going to want to use possibly a little thinner piece of tape around the camera portion up here at the top. You don't want the tape to overlap on top of it, and this slightly does, just a little bit. You can make the back feel like it's being pushed off to a degree, so you want to make sure that that doesn't happen. So just try to make sure that your tape doesn't overlap on top of the camera at all. Kind of like that. Let's put a nice thin piece of adhesive over this little section. Alright, next step is to go ahead and remove the backing off all of the tape. I wanted to pull up, so it's going to smooth it down and then pull it off. Alright, we're getting really close to having this device done. Need to take our rear glass that we took off, just make sure that it's nice and clean, just like the display was. No residue off of it. Go ahead and start down here at the bottom. Just make sure the corners fit in first and lay it down across the top. Just kind of smooth out the edges, make sure that it's nice and adhered to the bezel of the display. And there you have it. That's the working Xperia Z. If you like the video, hit the like button. If you want to see more videos, hit the subscribe button. Have any questions, throw them in the comments. And always, thanks for watching.